His approach to India was completely Hindu-Indian, but he was extraordinarily secular. I mean, he didn't keep away from Muslims. I mean, he didn't share their same food, but he was in an open house for Muslim. Because he came from Hyderabad and the whole culture affected him. And he spoke perfect Urdu.
सियासत को सियासत की जगह, मज़हब को मज़हब की जगह, इंसानियत को इंसानियत की जगह और अपने समाज को समाज की जगह रखकर अपनी ज़िंदगी बसर करना आज मुहाल हो रहा है।
My book talks about day-to-day changes from October 30th, 1992, when the VHP announces Kar Seva in the area right next to the mosque. They don't say they're going to destroy the mosque, right? However, of course, there is a chance that the mosque will be destroyed. The only legal option he had was to dismiss the state government under Article 356 of the Indian Constitution, what we call President's Rule, take over the state so that the police report to the central government and thereby protect the mosque. That was literally the only option he had, right? His own legal advisors repeatedly told him that, look, President's Rule is justified only when law and order in a state has broken down, right? Not when you think it's imminent, right? And again, there is some logic to that. Imagine if today the Prime Minister of the day says, look, a month from now there will be a law and order breakdown in some opposition state in India, and for that reason we will dismiss the opposition government in that state, right? It would be completely against federalism, right? So the Narasimha Rao didn't even, the option of invoking Article 356 was a difficult one.
The Chief Minister of Uttar Pradesh was Kalyan Singh. He promised the Prime Minister that we will not allow any untoward things to happen. He promised the Supreme Court that nothing untoward will happen. Supreme Court, actually Prime Minister has asked the Supreme Court to allow him to intervene. Supreme Court said don't intervene.
Even the Supreme Court, right? The Supreme Court chose to believe Kalyan Singh. The Intelligence Bureau reports, which I read at the time, again was wishy-washy. And the governor of the state, a man who had not been appointed by Narasimha Rao but by his predecessor, actually says, look, there's no threat to the mosque, don't impose President's Rule. The opposition leaders, VP Singh, Jyoti Basu, all of them said, look, the matter is very dangerous, but they stopped short of saying dismiss Kalyan Singh. What instead they said was, we trust Narasimha Rao to do whatever possible, right? The problem was that nobody wanted to take a clear stance that Kalyan Singh was not a reliable person. It was not clear that his own Congress partymen, that the Janta opposition, right, the VP Singh opposition, the communists, right, would support him if the BJP cried, murder of federalism and imposed and asked for a no confidence motion. If you were in Narasimha Rao's place at that time with these very difficult options, right, with the state government sworn to destroy the mosque, constitutionally tasked with protecting it, what are the kind of options you have, right? And who else will support you?
He used to ask Swami to go around and meet all sadhus. He visited a number of mutts and met Shankaracharyas and others to mobilize their opinion. Even P.R.K. Prasad was sent to meet Shankaracharyas. He
thought, he knew Sanskrit, he knew, Hindu religious texts much better than most people in Hindutva groups. He thought he could do a deal with them. He'd have back-channel chats with a variety of Hindu leaders, doing deals with them. He met Advani many times, he met Ashok Singhal many times. Now, some commentators have taken this to mean that, look, Narasimha Rao was complicit, right? The answer is the exact opposite. He was meeting them not to conspire with them, but to conspire with them to actually protect the mosque. In that circumstance, what Narasimha Rao did was try to involve everyone in that decision, right? So that later on, nobody told him that, look, we all told you to dismiss Kalyan Singh and you didn't do it.
And I think Vinay Sitapati makes a point very well that not in one cabinet meeting did one colleague of Narasimha Rao disagree with him on whatever he was trying to do in dealing with the Ayodhya.
He had this dilemma. He was a Hindu, and at the same time he is heading a secular party, which is very pro-Muslim. So he had to balance that. So he relied on the assurance given by Vajpayee and Advani that we will never break the masjid forcibly. So allow us to do this car seva. So in the car seva, so many sadhus and all came. I went to him, I told him that my friends in BJP, that time I was President of Janata Party, my friends in BJP tell me that they intend to break it. So you do something.
Prime Minister has sent the army, the armed forces. They were deployed about 2 kilometers away from Ayodhya, from Babri Masjid. They can be deployed, they can be used only by the Chief Minister. The Prime Minister cannot order. Chief Minister did not make use of them. So he allowed the Karsevaks to
and still kept quiet?
No. He was sure that Vajpayee and Advani will stop it.
It is not true to say that he did not take any decision in the case of Ayodhya. When Babri Masjid was being felled, our senior journalist Kuldeep Nair wrote in his book saying that when felling was started by Karsevaks, P. Narasimha Rao sat before the picture of God and closed his eyes, and he opened his eyes only when somebody whispered in his ears that the felling was over. It was all bullshit.
There's not a shred of evidence for that, which is why I don't think you should even call it a version, right? I actually checked, it's based on one journalist's book. Then I followed saying that how did that journalist know it, because he wasn't there. That journalist spoke to a socialist politician who anyway hates Narasimha Rao. Then I checked whether that socialist politician was present. If he also wasn't present, he said he heard it. Now in a court of law, a single hearsay, we say is illegal. This is a double or a triple hearsay, and yet it becomes a version, right? The correct story is Narasimha Rao was in his house. He was inside his room and he was watching TV. He saw the mosque fall like everyone else. He was immediately on the phone.
Both Rao, P.C. Rao and P.V.R.K. Prasad, who was his information advisor, all these people were with P.V. and they are all working together throughout the day.
So many of his officers have pointed out that they were talking to him. There were politicians who claimed, look, we were trying to reach Narasimha Rao and couldn't reach. That's because Narasimha Rao was talking to the Home Secretary. He was trying to reach the UP Home Secretary. He was talking to his Cabinet Secretary. He was talking to the head of the IBs. That's why people weren't able to reach him. And the evidence for this is very clear. And it's very simple. Ask the people who were actually talking to him at that period. He was not sleeping. He was not doing puja. He wasn't doing any of this, right? Yes, there was a failure, but using this kind of stuff as an example of that failure is straightforward falsehood.
What happened is he was relying on the assurance of Vajpayee and Advani. And it was wrong. I told him, don't rely on that. They don't control the cadres. You don't know the system in BJP.
He was misled. He was misled on many counts. He was also misled because the Hindutva groups were not a coherent group. It's not that the Bajrang Dal and the Shiv Sena were listening to Advani and the VHP was listening to Vajpayee and Advani. So it was a disparate group, and Narasimha Rao thought he could do a deal with them.
He was very agitated that he was betrayed. And I think Vajpayee should have, because he and Vajpayee were great friends. He was sending Vajpayee abroad. Whatever Vajpayee wanted, he did. So because Vajpayee didn't keep his word and Vajpayee didn't defend him, saying, I gave a personal assurance, I'm sorry I didn't keep it. He felt very bad on that.
Which is why he was so angry with Advani after the mosque fell. And as my book points out that Narasimha Rao's decision to falsely charge Advani in the Hawala case in early '96 was an act of revenge. Now, if people blame Narasimha Rao, the first question I ask is, what were you doing between October 30th and December 6, 1992? None of his own cabinet members unequivocally said, please remove Kalyan Singh, there is a threat to the mosque. Not one.
Not even Arjun Singh. Arjun Singh has written a whole book accusing Narasimha Rao of betraying the Congress party on this whole Babri Masjid. Did he say it in the cabinet meeting? Did he resign from the cabinet? No.
I looked at the cabinet meetings at that time. They didn't see anything. Manmohan Singh himself said nothing.
They were all complicit. Every single one of them, even this Ahmed Patel and Ghulam Nabi Azad, they were all there. They were all with Narasimha Rao. None of them objected to what he was doing till 6th December 1992.
This Prime Minister is too costly for us. He is too costly for us. He does not afford a communal Holocaust.
I would never have trusted any word they gave, whether in the court or anywhere.
These 200 deaths have been due to the wrong policies of the government.
Once that incident happened, everybody became a saint. Oh, my God, what a horrible Prime Minister, terrible Prime Minister, incompetent Prime Minister, let the country down. Only if I was Prime Minister, I would not have allowed this. So why didn't you say it one day before? Why did wisdom dawn on you one day after?
I met her in, she came in 1968. Yeah, I met her as soon as she came. Indira Gandhi told me that before you hear from anybody else, Rajiv is getting married. I said, who's a lucky girl? She said she is an Italian and they met in Cambridge. When Rajiv Gandhi passed away, she was shattered. I mean, her whole world collapsed. Absolutely terrible. And there was an ideal marriage. They were very happy with each other. I knew her extremely well. I said to her that you have already refused to become Prime Minister. But now you have to choose whom do you want. I said, don't only go by my advice. Ask Mr. P.N. Haksar. He used to be our mother-in-law's principal secretary, very wise man. We called Haksar. And he said, you better to PV. But PV had already packed up to go to Hyderabad. And then, this is where luck. And he became Prime Minister. To everybody's surprise. Many people, senior people in the Congress Working Committee were not happy that Narasimha Rao had been made Prime Minister. And so some of them, now they are all dead, but they were very senior people who went on carrying tales to Sonia Gandhi.
Arjun Singh and others, N.D. Tiwari, Arjun Singh, Moshana Kidwai, they were all carrying tales. And she was having grievance.
Because they kept on saying that, he is working against you, he is not with you.
She believed all this.
Yeah, because, most important political figures, as you say, the kaan ke kache hai, whoever meets them the last, that's what carries. She didn't know all this. So it stuck in her mind that he is not with her, although she had made him Prime Minister.
Narasimha Rao becoming Prime Minister was not because Sonia Gandhi made him Prime Minister. Narasimha Rao became Prime Minister because the majority of the elected MPs in May 1991 favoured Narasimha Rao over either Arjun Singh or Pawar. The party went into the second phase under the leadership of Mr. Narasimha Rao. And at the end of that election, when the results came, there were two very interesting facts. One, the Congress performed better in the second half of the voting than in the first half. That was clearly because of a sympathy wave. The killing of Rajiv Gandhi generated a lot of sympathy, and so the Congress performed better. But the second thing it meant was because a lot of the elections were in states with southern and western India in the second phase, more MPs came from that part of India. So the fact is that Arjun Singh did not find support in his home state. Pawar did not find full support in his own home state. It is Narasimha Rao who found support across states. And so he became the Prime Minister. So I argue that Narasimha Rao was an elected Prime Minister, not a nominated Prime Minister.
I think he always knew that one day Gandhi family will come back and take it. But I think he wanted that as long as he was Prime Minister, they should not interfere with him. And he'll look after their comforts and needs and this and that, but they should not interfere with him. He wanted to be taken seriously as a Prime Minister much more than Manmohan Singh by the Congress party and the family.
When Dhawan, he used to call him from Sonia Gandhi's house. He used to take the calls. But the time has come when Dhawan used to call him and made him wait for some minutes, 10 minutes. Then he said, I will not, you cannot make the Prime Minister wait. He put on the phone. That was the last phone call he got from Sonia's house.
I think he got the feeling that she is not understanding politics, she's not even understanding the issues to do with Rajiv's assassination. So anybody can go to her and feed anything into her ears.
So he called me one day to his house. And normally he took you in the sitting room, but he was standing in another room sideways. He was not sitting, standing. And he said, what do I do with her? I said, why are you asking me? He said, no, it's affecting my health. I can take her home, but I don't want to. As for the Arjun Singhs, there are no consequences. I can treat with them. They're not. But her, why is she upset with me? So I said, she had the impression that you are not expediting the trial of the assassinators of Rajiv Gandhi. So he said, this is very strange because I sent Chidambaram to her, he was Minister of State, home with the files. Then I sent S.B. Chauhan, who was Home Minister. Then finally I went. But there was no communication. We took all the files to show up, there was no communication.
Did she ask something from Rao and Rao rejected it, and that's the reason why?
No, Rao could never refuse it. Never. But she didn't ask.
She told it publicly also, but things are not happening as fast as I wished. So that has created a cleavage and that became a gulf.
And he was also a very shrewd person who didn't know what he was thinking. He kept a close watch on her also.
How often they used to meet?
Very seldom. They met in the working committee all, but there's no communication. Because she is also a very reticent person, and so was Mr. Narasimha Rao, very reticent person. So there was a dialogue of silence.
When the Babri Masjid disaster took place, since he was Prime Minister and he had his chosen Home Minister, both of them clearly failed to discharge their duty. certainly wrong to say they connived, but they failed to discharge their duty. It was their duty to protect the mosque. They should not have been taken in by promises and representations made by some groups of people.
If the demolition of the mosque was so obvious, Sonia Gandhi should have spoken up before the mosque was demolished. One sentence from her and the entire Congress party would have rallied behind Narasimha Rao and dismissed Kalyan Singh.
Rahul Gandhi says if Gandhi family was in politics, then this demolition would not happen.
What would happen? They were fired on the sadhus, would have ensured that the agitation of the country would have been, that their government would have fallen.
Is there any other prime minister who in these circumstances would have made a different decision? And I'm not so sure.
If suppose if Lalu Prasad were to be Prime Minister or Mulayam Singh were to be Prime Minister, maybe they would have ordered firing, resulting in 2,000, 3,000 deaths. It would be another Sikh riots or a Sikh rampage or some Jallianwala Bagh thing.
You could say Jawaharlal Nehru, but Jawaharlal Nehru controlled his party and controlled parliament, right? If somebody accused him of being unconstitutional, if there was a no confidence motion in parliament, he would have survived. Narasimha Rao fundamentally was asked to choose between protecting Babri Masjid and protecting his position as Prime Minister. He chose the latter. I think it's a sad day for India. But he was, the worst that can be said about him was that at a time in which statesmanship was required, he acted as a mere politician. The police sworn to protect Babri Masjid come under the purview of the state chief minister, who at that time was a BJP chief minister, Kalyan Singh, not Narasimha Rao. So, the first question to ask is, why is it that the first person you think of when you think of Babri Masjid is Narasimha Rao? And the answer to that question is Congress propaganda. That post 1998, when Sonia Gandhi comes back to the Congress, she wants it to be known that Narasimha Rao has done it.
It was also a kind of punishment for him, because they thought that if they can hold him responsible for Babri Masjid, then maybe they can get the Muslim vote back. So the political part of they are disowning him is that.
That was, and I'm afraid will remain, a major blot on his career, although it cannot overshadow the fact that he was the one who put India on the path of rapid progress, open economy, a liberal economy.
Narasimha Rao on foreign affairs, on the economy, got the arc of Indian history correct. In Babri Masjid, he failed. It was a mistake. He had an error of judgment. It was a serious error of judgment. But it was an error of judgment that every other institution and senior politician in India made, because it wasn't one way or the other, was not obvious.
Narasimha Rao was absolved of all charges by the Liberhan Committee later. He wrote a book also on that. His stand was vindicated. But the fact remains that he goes down in the history as a Prime Minister who presided over the demolition of Babri Masjid. He has to take it. There is no escape. Nobody can defend him. He happened to be Prime Minister at that time.